Story 1. The basement light that never turned off. The noise beneath the floor. It was a Friday night in early November. My parents had gone out for dinner, leaving me home alone. Nothing unusual. I'd stayed by myself plenty of times before, but that night felt different. Around 9:30 p.m., I heard it, a faint dragging sound coming from somewhere below. Our basement wasn't used much, just storage and an old furnace that barely worked. I muted the TV and listened again. Drag, pause, drag. It wasn't steady, more like someone moving slowly, trying not to make noise. At first, I told myself it was the pipes or the furnace kicking in. But then I realized the sound wasn't coming from the walls. It was directly underneath me. The living room floor creaked under my feet. I stood completely still, and suddenly every light in the house felt too dim. Then the noise stopped, and somehow the silence that followed was even worse. I finally built up the courage to check. I grabbed the kitchen flashlight, the heavy-duty one. My dad always kept charged, and walked toward the basement door. The handle felt cold. When I turned it, I noticed something strange, a soft yellow light glowing through the crack under the door. But I knew for sure I hadn't turned it on earlier. I slowly opened the door and looked down. The basement light was on, flickering like someone had just walked past it. "Hello," my voice cracked a little. No answer. Step by step, I went down the stairs, my heart pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. Halfway down, I heard the soft creak of something moving, like a footstep on the concrete floor. "Dad," I called out again. Nothing. When I reached the bottom, the light stopped flickering and went completely steady. Everything looked normal. The boxes, old tools, the furnace. And then I saw it. The basement door that led to the backyard was slightly open, just enough for someone to have slipped out. When my parents got home, I told them everything. They thought I'd just imagined it, until my dad checked the security camera near the back door. The footage showed something that still makes my stomach twist. At 9:27 p.m., the camera caught the basement light turning on. At 9:32 p.m., a tall shadow moved across the frame. A man in dark clothes, hood up, face hidden. He didn't break in. He had come from inside the basement. The police later discovered someone had been living down there for weeks, sleeping behind the furnace, using our old water heater to stay warm. Every night, while we were asleep upstairs, he'd come out to eat, move around, and just watch us. That night, when I heard the dragging noise, he wasn't trying to scare me. He was packing to leave. Story 2. The doorbell that rang at 2:17 a.m. The first ring. It was the middle of winter, quiet, freezing, and still. My parents were out of town for the weekend, visiting my grandma. I had the whole house to myself. By midnight, the neighborhood was completely silent. I was half asleep, scrolling on my phone, when I heard it. Ding, dong. The sound echoed through the hallway. I froze. No one ever came to our door that late, especially not in our quiet suburban neighborhood. I glanced at the clock, 2:17 a.m. At first I thought maybe it was a wrong delivery, or a neighbor messing around. But when I peeked through the window, there was nothing, just snow falling under the streetlight. I waited. No second ring. Trying to shake it off, I turned the lights off and went back to bed. But I couldn't shake the feeling that someone had been standing right outside, watching. The next morning, I decided to check. When I opened the front door, the cold air hit me like a wall. The porch was covered in a thin layer of snow, except for one thing: footprints. They led from the street straight up to my front door and stopped. No prints leading away. It looked like whoever had been there never left. I stared for a long time, following each print with my eyes, heart pounding. They were deep, clear, like someone had been standing there for minutes, just facing the door. I called my parents and told them what I saw. My dad said it was probably the mailman, or maybe a prank. I tried to believe that. That night, I made sure every door and window was locked tight. By 10 p.m., the house was dark, curtains drawn, TV playing quietly to drown out the silence. Then, ding-dong, same sound, same timing, 2:17 a.m. Only this time, I heard breathing on the other side of the door. I didn't open it. I didn't even move. I just sat on the couch, staring at the front door, until the sound stopped. The next morning, I checked the doorbell camera footage. What I saw made my blood run cold. At 2:17 a.m., a tall man in a heavy winter coat walked up to the door. He didn't knock, he didn't say a word. He just stood there, staring straight at the camera. Then, slowly, he reached out and covered the lens with his hand. The screen went black for almost 2 minutes. When his hand moved away, he was gone. The police said they'd patrol the area, but they never found anyone. No neighbors reported a thing. For weeks after that, I kept waking up at 2:17 a.m., not because of an alarm, but because I could hear that sound again in my head. Ding dong. And sometimes, even now, when the wind hits the house just right, I still swear I hear it. Story 3. The man in the window. The knock at the glass. It happened during the summer, after my first year of college. I was home for break, staying at my parents' house, a small, quiet place on the edge of town, surrounded by woods. They went on a weekend trip to visit friends, and I volunteered to stay behind to take care of our dog, Max. It was Friday night, warm, silent, and still. I made some popcorn, watched a movie, and around midnight started getting ready for bed. That's when I heard it, a knock, not on the door, on the window. It was soft, slow, and deliberate. 3 taps, then silence. Max's ears perked up immediately. He started growling low, staring toward the living room window. I froze. The blinds were down, but through them I could see a faint silhouette. Someone was standing outside. My stomach dropped. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe. After a few seconds, whoever it was knocked again. This time, harder, I whispered. "Who's there?" No response. The sound stopped. But Max kept growling. His eyes followed something like someone was slowly walking around the house, the window that opened itself. I grabbed my phone and texted my mom, pretending everything was fine, just in case. Then I made sure every door was locked, checked all the windows, or at least I thought I did. By 1 a.m., everything was quiet again. Max finally calmed down and curled up beside me. But just as I started to drift off, I heard a faint click, like the sound of a window latch being lifted. It came from the guest room at the end of the hallway. My blood ran cold. I slowly got out of bed, grabbed my flashlight, and walked toward the noise. The air felt different, cooler, like a draft was coming in. When I reached the guest room, I stopped. The window was open, just a few inches, but definitely open. And on the windowsill, a clear handprint smudged against the glass. I slammed it shut, locked it tight, and called 911. The dispatcher told me to stay on the line until an officer arrived. While I was waiting, I heard footsteps, slow, deliberate ones, crunching on the gravel outside my window. Then silence, followed by a whisper, low, right next to the glass. "I saw you," the hidden recording. When the police arrived, they searched the yard and the woods behind the house, but found nothing, no footprints, no signs of anyone. One officer told me to stay somewhere else for the night. I packed a few things and went to my neighbor's place across the street. The next morning, we checked my parents' security cameras. The one by the back porch had caught something grainy, but clear enough to see. At 12:43 a.m., a tall man walked out of the woods behind the house. He went straight to the living room window, the one I'd heard knocking on. Then he just stood there, watching. After a few minutes, he moved around the house, disappearing from one camera angle to another. At 1:02 a.m., he stopped by the guest room window. He crouched down, pressed his hands against the glass, and tried to lift it open. When the light from the living room turned on, He froze and smiled. Then he backed away, step by step, into the woods, and vanished. The police never identified him. But the strangest part, when we checked the guest room later, we found something wedged under the window frame, a tiny GoPro camera, still recording. The last thing it captured before dying was my face walking toward the window. Flashlight in hand,